This is just another rant video. Uh, I deleted Talk Life. Talk Life is like this app for mentally ill people that I've been using for like 10 years. And I'm honestly embarrassed about using it. I've always been embarrassed about using it, but I've been so lonely. It's like an app for people with like mental health struggles, loneliness, anxiety, depression, whatever. And you just can go on it, and then you can make a post, and people can, it just like goes on a feed, a main feed, and people can like scroll through what people are saying in their posts, and then it can comment on it, and then there's like you can DM people. And basically I've been using it for like 10 years on and off. um Sometimes I wouldn't use it for years. And but basically whenever I was using it, like I was basically just lonely, right? And I was using it also, just like as a form of connection. But uh I think I went into it like everybody kind of, a lot of people did when they first download it, because they kind of believe it. They think like, oh, this is a place I could go and I could, you know, talk to a bunch of supportive people, and it'll be so great. And then the reality is it's just like another shithole on the internet. And yeah, but that one is like really, it's honestly depressing in there, because it's like a lot of depressed, anxious people trying to like, I don't know, support each other in a way. But they're like the blind leading the blind a lot, and so it's just, it gets really toxic. It was really toxic in there. And then also, I was just using it to like vent and whatever, and also to talk to girls, like talk to women, which a lot of guys do on there or on the internet. And actually some women do that too, to like talk to guys. So it's like there's like an attention thing going on. um the guys are lonely and horny, and then the women are probably lonely but also want attention, maybe horny too, but not as much as the guys, that's for sure. And then but then there's also people mixed in who are just genuinely like vulnerable and like hurting and want help. And then so they're like dismayed when they get on there, and it's like really hard to find anybody who could actually like help you genuinely. And then there's also the thing about like enabling, where a lot of people go on there and they just like get they just look for somebody who will enable them in a way, quote unquote validate them, but sometimes it's just like enable. And so it's just kind of like another thing about like society and the internet as well, where yeah, it's just like another toxic space online. And then there's like tons of like censorship as well on there too, like posts get removed all the time. And then on that Talk Life website, I found like there was like old news articles on it where there was like pedophiles and stuff on there, and people like met up, and or guys were meeting like underage women and stuff. And like, so it's just like another mess online. But they're really strong on like the censorship on there, like deleting posts and stuff. And but anyways, so I deleted it because it just makes me feel more depressed, like more worse, like, or worse, not more worse, it makes me feel worse. And it's not actually helpful to be like staring at your phone all the time, like feeling like that's your connection to people. It's just like, that's just like weird, like that's like not true socialization, you know what I mean? So but that's what most people are getting, and then that's the way society's like going, right? So then more and more people do that because that's what other people are doing. So but I also I deleted the Talk Life because there was like this bullshit situation happened, and I just was like, man, like I'm the retarded one, because this girl was like dicking me around, which is just like, anybody who has like a brain would probably tell me like, well, yeah, you're dealing with like it's like depressed people talking to other depressed people, depressed and anxious people, so like, yeah, duh. But I just kind of like I don't know if it was like a moment of clarity or what, or anger or what, but I just like deleted the app because this girl was supposed to be coming to see me, and then she like basically like stood me up. Like she didn't show up, she blocked me, and then I was like, well, fuck, why did I even get my hopes up? It's so stupid of me, you know. I was mad. But at the same time, I was going through all this like RTMS treatment stuff too, and so my like attachment system is like screwed up right now because it's like lowering my anxiety, but then it's also like I don't know, I still feel like this like underneath desire to be like, you know, connected to people and to find a relationship and all this stuff, you know. I think everybody feels that, or at least majority of people, you know, like 99% of people obviously want a relationship, and and yet it's like so difficult sometimes because of a lot of the state of the world and what's happened to us in the past, I guess. Well, I guess that would make sense, right? And then so this girl, I was like, well, this is dumb. And then she unblocked me later, and then she like apologized and like, you know, said she regrets not showing up and all this, and I was just like, you know, that was rude. And she was like asking if I forgive her and stuff, and then I was like, yeah, okay, I forgive you. And then she was saying like it, you know, things could still work out, and kind of like, would you give me another chance? And I'll be coming there again, like to your city, because she lives like, you know, 13 hours away, but she comes to my city for visiting her family, lives nearby. And I was like, I'll have to like think about that. Like, I was like thinking to myself, and I was like praying on it, and I was like trying to figure out like what should I do here. And I was asking God for help and guidance, and then I was asking like, how do I treat a woman, like, because I don't really know, you know. Like, my dad was never there when I was growing up, you know. He beat up my mom, and then I just like grew up with like around a bunch of women, so like maybe it's like obvious to some people, but to me it's not that obvious, you know, which is embarrassing really, because then basically people just think you're like fucked up, you're retarded, you're like a pussy, you're a faggot, or like something like that. Like, if you just don't instinctively, or maybe not instinctively, but if you just haven't been taught like how to act, at least that's what, you know, how I was talked to when I was a kid. So I was just saying like, okay, well, I have to think about it, maybe, you know. And so anyways, she's saying like she wanted to talk on the phone more so that she's not so nervous. I was like, yeah, okay, we could talk on the phone more. Would you like to call like later this week? And then she's like, sure. And then I was like, okay, what's your phone number? And then she like leaves me on red, and then she goes and posts something else, and I'm like sitting there waiting. And then like 5 hours later, I messaged her. I said like, you know, are you like, what's going on? Where'd you go? And then she says, I was napping, LOL. And I just got pissed off because it's like clearly a lie. Like, she was responding like right away, and then sees that message, leaves me on red, goes and posts somewhere else, then says comes back, says she's napping, and she doesn't say her number. I was just like, fuck this. So I just said, I'm gonna block your ass. And then she's like, okay, and then I blocked her. And I was like pissed off. I was like, this is so retarded. Like, why am I wasting my time? Like, I guess I know why I'm wasting my time, you know, because just like loneliness and all that makes us do stuff like that. and embarrassment and shame and all this like trauma stuff, and you know, cause yeah, and then so cause all those different parts like come up in different ways if we don't, like, if we suppress them, right? You know, all those like different things are still there, like all those, you know, needs for connection and everything are still there, even if we try and like suppress them and act cool or act like we don't need it, or like try and focus on quote unquote other stuff like success and whatever, making money and stuff. Well, all that other stuff is still there, right? So then I blocked her, and then I just deleted the app. And I mean, it sucks. It just, it never really, it doesn't, like, I don't know if how it feels. It feels like both good and bad, because I'm just like, fuck, this is so horrible, you know, like I just want a girlfriend and a wife, or a girlfriend and then a wife, and then, you know, a family, right? And this girl was saying that she wants that too, and she like, she's like a nurse, and she like I think she's like 25, and I was saying, like, you know, dating is horrible right now, and all like dating apps are horrible, and like there's not very many people having kids, like young people having kids. It's the birth rate is like super low, it's like 1.26, and that's, you know, way below the replacement rate of 2.1, right, to replace the population. So if you're having like under that, then eventually the population will shrink, right? And the amount of white children being born is like decreasing all the time, because most, or not most, but 42% of births are to foreign born mothers or something like that, foreign born parents or foreign born mothers in Canada. So, you know, white people are getting erased. All the other people are like, oh, that's a good thing, or they say it's not happening, or they say it's a good thing, or they say it doesn't matter, or they say you're racist or something, when they finally acknowledge that it is happening. And then the young people, like the young women or whatever, they care about like traveling, they care about like dicking around, they care about going to the bar, they care about like being sarcastic, they care about like being quirky, they care about like, it's hard to even know sometimes, but basically they're all just like most of them are like liberal leftists and stuff, and a lot of atheists. And then the actual reality starts to like hurt later on, right? Because it's like they focus on all that stuff, but then there's like the biological reality. And I was saying this to this girl, I was like, it sucks, because like you know, the birth rate is like going low, and no one's having children, and the thing that happens to women is like they get older and then they want a family. I wasn't telling her all this, but this is kind of like what's really the truth. Like what's going on is like women get older and then they want a family, and then they prioritized careers, and they kind of somehow maybe have been tricked or something to believe that men like this, and like men don't really like that much, you know. Like men rate a woman who's like in like a high powered or a high status career about the same attractiveness as a woman who's like working just like a cleaning lady or at fast food. Like, you know, men don't care that much, you know, in the studies, right? And reality too. Like, so like the values that women are kind of prioritizing are stuff that men don't really care about, but the men still want women, obviously, and they want like female attention. So what the men end up doing is they're just like allowing it to happen, and constantly like shifting more toward like female stuff that will get female approval, right? Essentially simping. So so that's happening. But that girl is like 25, and she's like, well, I'm 25, I still got time. And I was like, ooh, you know, I didn't say anything, but I was like, ooh, yeah, well, you don't want to wait too long, right? Like, women think that they can just start a family later when they're in their 30s. Meanwhile, it's like they have like these biological realities that, you know, they lose like half their eggs, like their fertility goes down essentially. And then women in their 30s, they feel terrible when it's like they can't conceive or whatever. And then like it's like really sad, and it's just a story that's gonna like get worse and worse because, you know, the stats don't lie. More and more women are having being like childless and unmarried or whatever. And I'm pretty sure like what happens is like women, they end up trying to fulfill the maternal need elsewhere, you know, like within their job or something. And it's just a disaster for society. It's a disaster. And it's like sad too. It's like, so and people are pissed off, like in general. Like a lot of people are not feeling good about like a lot of things that are going on. So anyways, but yeah, I deleted Talk Life, and I deleted the dating apps because I was like on these dating apps, and I've been on and off dating apps since I was, I want to say like 20, so for like 10 years. And dating apps are terrible, you know, like you have to basically, there's like a way to like win them or game them, but what are you really winning? Because it's like some people think that winning is just like sleeping with a lot of different women. A lot of young guys think that, you know, and I used to think that too. But that's like it's like hard to talk about, but that's like a desire for like connection and love basically, but it's like misplaced to like sex or whatever. And then the women, they like behave like, I don't know, it's kind of like hard to fully know, but women sort of behave I think contingent on how men behave. So yeah. And then there's no like good information there, or there is, but it's like not really pushed as much, especially among like friend groups, like young guy friend groups, or even young girls probably. Like the good information about like go to church, have a family, you know, enjoy life that way, the way God intended, that information is not really pushed, you know, at all. So, or very little. And so yeah, dating apps are just terrible. I don't like them. I have asked women on dates in real life. It's really hard. It's like really hard. It's like super scary. I've done it. On dating apps it's easier, but I don't know. There's just like, it's like very difficult, you know? And I think a lot of women want to be approached and asked on dates. Like I think it was like in the 70% where women wanted, like felt like they would like to be approached and asked on dates more. And of course there's women that don't at all, obviously. But I think a lot of women do. And then yeah, so, and then the other thing is that women want people to ask them on dates and approach them that they find attractive, you know. They don't want, you know, to borrow a term from the looks maxing community, they don't want like a sub 5 guy to ask them on a date, right? Because those guys, they just instinctively like label them as like creepy or whatever if these guys are like pursuing them in a romantic sense. But if it's a guy that they find attractive, you know, the women, they're happy with that. Like that's part of what they want. So yeah, so anyway, I deleted the dating apps. I actually feel better, but I know the thing is that like I'll feel lonely again. So what I think I'm gonna try and do, basically about this whole thing, is that it's actually really hard, but because I feel so lonely. But I'm gonna try and, work on my book. I'm gonna keep praying. I'm gonna keep going to the gym. I've been doing these things and I actually kind of like doing these things. I still feel lonely, but I'm gonna do these things, and I'm just gonna kind of like prioritize those things a bit more. And yeah, also I think what I need to start doing is going to more groups. I've been looking up like prayer groups. I would like to start going to those. The thing I do not like, and I just have social anxiety about, is when people start asking me about myself. It's so hard for me because I just like I've never been good at talking about myself, and people just want to like fucking laser focus in on you and what you're doing, and they're just like so focused on anything that sounds like outside of like the usual narrative. Then they just ask about it and they want to know more. It's like, fuck, I'm sick of this shit. It's annoying. It's like, do people not know? Do people not realize this? Like, the Western civilization is declining, but they're always like looking for like some fucking reassurance, and they view things as like a story, as like a movie or something, and like it's horrible. And you get all these people that go on Reddit and stuff, and Redditors are like so annoying. They're so annoying. Like, Reddit is so annoying, and yeah, so it's crazy the state of things. Actually, I gotta mention this. So I looked on, or I heard that in the Vatican Library, they opened, or to put it in their terms, they allowed a Muslim prayer room for visiting Muslim scholars. And I heard this and I was like, what the F? So I had to look it up. And it was just a bunch of like articles and people on, I looked like one Reddit thing. They're like justifying it. And I was like, that is so evil. Like, how is it that they think this is okay? How do they think that's okay? Because like, it's not a courtesy like they were trying to say it is. It's like, that's like the first commandment is, thou shalt have no idols before me. And why would they open up a place where Muslims who pray to, they don't pray to the Holy Trinity. They pray to Allah, which means God in their language, Aramaic or Arabic, or I forget where Allah comes from, but that's who they think. And it's like white people or Christians or whoever, Catholics, they don't understand that like Muslims, they wouldn't do the same thing for Christians or Catholics. Like, they wouldn't be like, oh, it's a courtesy, let's let all these Christians come to Mecca and then have a prayer room where they can worship Jesus. Like, do you think that would happen? They would probably kill you or something. Like, they believe that's called shirk or something. And yeah, I just don't get why Catholics think that's a good idea at all. So, and it's like surprising how many Catholics are like trying to justify it too, as like a courtesy, or like, oh, it's not that big a deal. We just basically just gave them a room with a rug. It's not a big deal. And they would have to go home 5 times. So how would they get any scholarship done in the library if they had to go leave the library 5 times a day just to go pray? Like, let's just let them have a prayer room with a rug, or a room with a rug. It's not a big deal. It's a courtesy. What? How? What is the? Where's the defending of the faith? The same thing with King Charles. He says Salam Alaikum in his like Christmas address or something, or like one of his addresses to the nation. This guy is supposed to be the defender of the faith. I'm just like, this stuff is crazy, man. And I'm like, we can't say any of this stuff out in Canadian society because people are just like not able to have a conversation or something. And yeah, so the state of the discourse is really bad, but yeah, we just have to pray, have faith, and read the Bible, follow the Bible. And also, we cannot think that we are more righteous than other people because other people are sinners too. We have to rebuke the sin, but we don't stand there and try and exalt ourselves. I'm not trying to exalt myself. I'm a sinner too, and I ask for God's mercy. That's what we need is God's mercy, really. And he who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. That was the reading in church last Sunday, yesterday. Okay, then the next thing. So, something that I have trouble with in church, speaking of church, is I have trouble crying, and just in general, I have trouble crying, letting my emotions out, and it's really hard for me, and it's really painful too, because whenever I get this feeling like I'm gonna cry, it's like the natural, or right away my urge is to suppress it, which is not actually that healthy, right? I guess it's kind of like a healthy thing depending on the scenario, because if there's people that just want to hurt you or like be mean to you if you're crying, then people don't really want to cry, right? You don't want to be vulnerable. And so that's what happened to me a lot when I was growing up. But now I have trouble crying, and sometimes I feel this like urge to cry, like I felt it in church. And I feel it like when I go to like these craniosacral massages, because a lot of like trauma or tension or emotion or whatever, it's like stored in the body. And so when they're working on the body, sometimes I get these like urges like I'm gonna cry, but then it's like my subconscious protection or whatever wants to suppress it. And so I'm supposed to go to craniosacral, and I want to just like say to the lady like, is it okay if I start crying? And I think she'll say it's okay, because they probably get trained for that, right? They learn about this stuff when they're doing their training, that a lot of like people can have an emotional response. And for me, it's true. Like I don't like it, because I don't want to like make her feel uncomfortable. I don't want to, people to gossip about me or something, and I don't want people to dislike me. But at the same time, it's like I get this feeling like I need to just let some tears out, and people are so uncomfortable with that, and my own family is so uncomfortable with that, so it's like really hard, and also I don't want to be called a bitch, I don't want to be called a faggot, I don't want to be called a pussy, like that's what you get called when you're growing up, or when you're around other guys, when you're growing up, like for the most part, at least my experience, like, so yeah, it's tough, Okay, so the other thing I'm working on is my book, which I mentioned. And my book, I'm trying to write it, and actually it's kind of I kind of like writing it. Like I'm kind of almost enjoying, maybe, but it feels like it's something I should be doing, right? Because it's like I feel like I have an important thing to say, and so now I'm writing it into a book. It's a nonfiction book. It's about narrative theory and the map of consciousness, and I just put them together, and then I support them. First I should say, I say that there's many narratives, but the one true narrative is that one of Jesus Christ in the Bible, and but then I give support to this narrative theory and map of consciousness framework using interface theory by Donald Hoffman. He talks about how the world is like an interface, like on a computer screen, and our perceptions interact with that, but it's not the truth. It's not like true reality, or it's not truth rather. It's just kind of what we interact with. And so I'm just giving support for that, or using that as support for the narrative theory and the map of consciousness put together. And then the other thing I'm talking about is Gödel's incompleteness theorem, because that supports the rational. It supports the narrative theory over the rational world paradigm, because people think that, you know, rationality is like the thing we gotta do. We gotta be more rational and whatever. And I'm saying, like, yeah, that's good, but it only goes up to a point, right? Like it can't go forever, because Gödel's incompleteness theorem proves that math can't prove itself. And it's talking about like set theory, you know, the set just keeps expanding, and that's what he's talking about, incompleteness. Because every time you try and go outside of the set to complete the set, that what's in the set, you're expanding the set, and then you have to go outside of the set to complete that, and then it further expands the set. So that's how it is for math, at least. That's what Gödel found, and then, or what he proved. And then it relates to logic, because a lot of people use logic, which is like rationality, right? And they try and use logic, and so they go outside their logical set, but then they have to account for what's something else that's in the set that they just created by going outside of the set, expanding it further. So that's why this rational world thing, it works, but it only goes so far, you know? It doesn't go forever. And I think Gödel said that he thought he thought that he proved the existence of God when he made that. So anyways, I'm working on the book, and then I'm going to start talking about, I've been talking about Jews a little bit because I wanted to get into like narratives out in society, and because those affect, you know, personal narratives. So I'm talking about, like, there's a story arc. Everybody has a story arc. You know, you're the main character in your story, but there's also other people in your story, right? And then they're also like their own main character. So there's story arcs within story arcs, right? And there's these connections, right, between people. And then I'm saying, like, well, there's these broader, bigger societal story arcs. What are they? And I'm saying, like, well, okay, so it's Jews. Jews have a huge influence on the bounds, or what the bigger societal story arcs are, right? You know, Jews are behind feminism, communism. There's the Holocaust barrier. You cannot say anything that doesn't agree with the Holocaust main points, right? You go to jail. There's anti-Semitism, hate speech laws, racism. That's another bound that's been put in the last, 100 or so years. Before, everybody was racist, right? Everybody just kind of implicitly understood it, and then not to say that they necessarily thought they were more superior than other people, although that's a mistake that I think people fall into, because actually we're all equal under God, right, spiritually. But there are differences, right? So it's like this distinction that's hard to make for people. On a spiritual level, we're all equal under God, but on earth level, biological reality level, there are differences, and it's not just skin color, obviously. Like, maybe it's not obvious to people, but there are differences. And so there's, things like that. And then there's many more, the banking system, Hollywood, who controls those, most of the media. Who just bought TikTok? Larry Ellison. So that's the goal. It's to talk about these things, right? So we just need to pray. Praying is the most important thing. Having faith in God, that's the most important thing. Worshipping God, that's the most important thing. The most important things are love, the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And a second most important commandment is like it: love your neighbor as you love yourself. That's what Jesus taught. That's what was taught in the Old Testament. So, yeah. So those are the most important things. Okay, and then the other thing is that I've been doing my RTMS. I'm almost done. My last RTMS is today. I'll be doing my last one. I feel, pretty good about it. I'm kind of thankful that I got to do it. The psychiatrist who I'm doing it with, I'm thankful that she granted me to do it. But when she was interviewing me, I wasn't 100% happy with how she reacted when I told her, she was asking all these questions, right? And I was saying yeah, well, I have less anxiety, but it's not everything is all great, because there's still things going on in the world in Canada that's kind of upsetting, and then there's things going on within my family that's upsetting. And she's asking me what do you mean? I said, well, all my family is narcissists. They gaslight me. And when I said they're narcissists, she cackled. And then she just didn't say anything else. She just asked a different question. So I didn't like that, actually, because I'm serious about that. Whenever I bring up anything that's kind of uncomfortable to my family, or that's real, that's uncomfortable, they start talking about themselves. And they do that all the time, And there's all this stuff that's going on in their lives that they want attention and energy toward, but that's never ending, And when I try and bring up reality that's uncomfortable, they take it as if they're being attacked. They take it as if I'm just being mean to them or something. But it's how can I honestly help? Because I've tried, being, I don't know, quote unquote nice. I've tried being calm. I've tried being rational. I've tried all these things. And then eventually I just kind of realized it's basically all wrong. The roles are screwed. The roles are screwed up. I'm the youngest. I'm not my mom's father. I'm not her parent. And I'm not my older brother's older brother. So I have to tell them that. I was just I told my mom that. I told my brother that. And I tell them the truth about stuff, and they don't like it a lot of the time, so yeah, so I just tell them, a lot of times I tell them the most important thing: you have to pray. You have to pray, because when there's things that are greater that we cannot fix ourselves, we need God's help. We need to humble ourselves and ask for God's help, ask for mercy, and that's what's important, right? So yeah, so that's what's going on. A lot of stuff, as usual. I'm also trying to kind of slowly improve my place a little bit. I want to get my there's a blue jay outside. I want to get my cold dunk tank working again. I want to get a red light therapy device. So I'm just kind of working on these things, and then I'm doing all this other stuff. And I'm just trying to also just kind of stay steady with it and grow with it, right? I read the Bible every day. I'm on the book of Judges now. I don't read it every day. I read it a lot of days. I'm on the book of Judges now. So I'm just reading through that. I'm just trying to stay steady with all this stuff. Praying every day. Pray the rosary every morning. That's important. It's very important. Always got to show up for God every single day. Every day. It's not just a fireworks moment that some people seem to think it will be because of some of these sermons that they hear and everything. A lot of it is you have to show up for God every day. So yeah, that's what's going on.